Forgive me, I'm lining something up here. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, subcommittee members and members of the public, to this July 24th, 2024 Governor's Workforce Development Board Barriers and Underserved Populations meeting. For the record, my name is Ken Evans, Chair of the Barriers and Underserved Populations Subcommittee. Katie, will you please take a roll call, confirm a quorum, and verify posting?
Sure thing, Mr. Chair. All right, first for roll call, we have Ken Evans.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Tiffany Teller-Garner.
Present.
Thank you. We have Ms. Jerry Merritt.
Present.
Thank you. We have Mr. George Galt.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Kevin Landry.
Present.
Thank you. We have Mr. David Rybelbus.
Present.
Thank you. We have Dr. Evelyn Thompson Hilbert.
Present.
Thank you. We have Miss Crystal Slaughter.
Present.
Thank you. Have Mr. Derek Jimpy. Don't see him on here. Okay, and then Mr. Chair, for the voting members, we had one pre-notified absence for Michael Yoder. And then for our non-voting members, we have Dave Schmidt. Okay, and then we have Cam Green.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Chair, with that, Katie Gilbertson, Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation, for the record, I hereby affirm that this July 24th, 2024 Governor's Workforce Development Board Barriers and Underserved Populations Subcommittee meeting has reached a quorum. And I further affirm that the agenda and notice for this meeting were properly posted pursuant to Nevada's open meeting law, NRS 241020.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilbertson. Before we proceed, I kindly request that anyone who speaks today identify themselves for the record. Additionally, if you're not a member of the subcommittee, please wait to be called upon by myself or give feedback during public comment. And with that, we'll continue on to agenda item number 4, which is the first public comment session. Members of the public on remote technology are invited to provide comments at this time. No action may be taken on any matters during public comments until the matter itself has been included on an agenda as an item for possible action. Any public comments on the telephone? And any public comments on Zoom? Hearing none, we'll close out agenda item number 4, the first public comment session. We'll move on to agenda item number 5 for possible action. Is there any discussion before I call for a motion to approve the April 24, 2024 Barriers and Underserved Populations Subcommittee meeting minutes? Any comments on the meeting minutes? Hearing none, I call for a motion to approve the April 24, 2024 Barriers and Underserved Populations Subcommittee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Jerry Merritt, for the record, I move.
Thank you.
Kevin Landry, for the record, I second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, it's been moved by committee member Merritt, second by committee member Landry. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed has the same rights. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Please let the record reflect that the meeting minutes for April 24th, 2024 has been approved. Moving on to agenda item number 6 for discussion and information only. I would like to recognize the Director of Workforce Development Strategy and Innovation for the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, Mike Lang, and Adult Careers Pathways Program Coordinator for the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, Vanessa Roman. Mr. Lang and Ms. Roman will share information on Minnesota's Targeted Populations Workforce Competitive Grant Program.
Hello.
Good afternoon. We can hear you both. Go ahead.
Excellent. Just a quick adjustment to the agenda. Ann Myers was not able to be here today, but I have my colleague Vanessa Roman joining us today. So, all right, and share my screen. Okay, so thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about this great program that we were able to implement during our last legislative session. Not most recent, previous legislative session. It's one of our great honors is to meet other states and to share some of our best practices. So we look forward to hearing some from Nevada in the future here too. So as we get started here, like most of our grants, the targeted populations came out of engagement sessions that we held with the communities we serve. This program was also a response to Minnesota's low unemployment rate, which at the time was 2.3%. While the overall rate is 2.3%, that is not true for every demographic in Minnesota. Some communities are experiencing much higher unemployment, which is where the targeted populations workforce competitive grants come in. They do a variety of things. Some of it's used for training employers and community-based organizations, and others are for capacity building or smaller organizations that serve specific populations. And so we're going to go into greater detail on what that is. And so as mentioned, I'm Mike Lang. I am the Director of Strategy and Innovation for the Workforce Development Division of DEED. I've had the pleasure of working for DEED for 25 years, and I'm joined by my colleague, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Roman. Thank you for having us here today. I'm an employment and training program coordinator here with DEED. Nowhere near Mike's 25 years. I've been with DEED for about 6 years, but in workforce and public service, various agencies around the state of Minnesota for about 16 years. So looking forward to talking to you all today about this program. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thank you. So the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, we have our commitment to empowering the growth of the Minnesota economy for everyone. And so this program that we're talking about today is a part of the Employment and Training Division. And more specifically, Vanessa and Ann are of the Office of Adult Career Pathways. All of our Adult Career Pathways programs support services designed to improve the economic opportunities for people of color, women, people with disabilities, and or veterans in Minnesota. This specific programs, or well, not this and many of their programs, they share a similar eligibility. Some have more specific participants, but they have very similar criteria. So if they typically, in order to participate in this program or programs like it, you'd have to be a low income, it must be at least 18 years or older, must have a goal of attaining a certificate or a credential, and as well as obtaining employment. They also should have some sort of a barrier to employment, and particularly eligible will be individuals of color. The targeted populations workforce portion of this grant is in the amount of $18.5 million designated each year for each fiscal year. It's a 2-year program. So each fiscal year at up to $18.5 million. The maximum award to an organization is $750,000, and it's divided into 3 parts on this one. The first part, jobs and skills training, part 1A, part 1B, organizational mentorship, and part 2, entrepreneurship training. And eligible organizations can apply for different subsets of those parts, depending on that, but only from the list on screen here too. Can't just pick organizational mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Eligible organizations who can apply, they must be a community-based organization, a 501c3, with a revenue of $1 million or less. At least that was the case for the first round. In the most recent legislative session, we had that limit removed as a result of getting limited interest in qualifying organizations. In Greater Minnesota, There are some larger organizations that have capacity to serve targeted populations, but because they are, representing such large areas, their organizations are bigger. And as a result, we wanted to remove that limit to enable so that some of our greater Minnesota and within the metro area as well, organizations can apply.
A million
Your-
definitely is not as little as it or
Yeah.
as much as it once was. So
Yeah.
finding organizations that were under that cap, actually, they were much further limited interest than we had initially expected.
It reminds me of that Austin Powers movie line, $1 million. So the organizations must also provide workforce services. They must be located in a historically underserved community or low income community. And they must also serve a population that generally reflects the community where they live. So in the part 1A that we mentioned, all programs must provide the services and skills that, Vanessa, I'm going to hand this one to you. I think you can do these next 2 slides a little better than I can. Otherwise, I'll just read it to them.
Sure. So all programs have to provide under 1A. So this is your traditional workforce services, workforce training services, tutoring, testing, training, and employment placement. Particularly, we have a limitation, or we had a limitation within the RFP that it had to be an in-demand industry sector. So you couldn't support training as, for example, a nail technician, or like we always like to say, underwater basket weaving. So in-demand, high-wage industry sectors, assistance in planning, obtaining industry-specific certifications, any brush-up, remedial training, work experience, or on-the-job training. So work-based learning is a huge component of this. It's something that we strongly advocate for in all of our programs. Career and education counseling, work experience and internships. And then, Mike, can you get to the next slide? Support services. Tuition reimbursement is available for new people in public sector careers, career mentorship, case management, job placement, corporate board of director training for people of color, outreach, and workforce education engagement services. We did not see, any proposal hit all of these. So did I see in our last round, we didn't see anybody propose doing corporate board of director training or tuition reimbursement. And that wasn't the requirement. We were trying to give people a broad list that they could choose from. So all the things that really, and the meat, I would say, of the targeted populations really is around this workforce services. Go to the next slide. I don't remember what we have here.
Yeah.
I don't have a slide on this in particular, but I want to talk about what part 1B and part 2 is. So part 2 is entrepreneurship training. So these organizations could also propose to just provide entrepreneurship training. And they didn't have to do the workforce. They could do both if they wanted to, but entrepreneurship training. So helping people from their communities start small businesses. So excited about that. We did get some proposals in that, and we funded some proposals in that regard, but not as many as we got in the targeted workforce services. The other thing was the organizational mentorship, and that's that part 1B. Hindsight being 2020, the next time we release this, I will rename these a little simpler than 1A, 1B, and part 2, but hindsight is 2020, right? Organizational mentorship. We were really targeting small community-based organizations for this program. Those who are under $1 million, those who are in low income or rural communities, communities of color, maybe a lot of organizations that have had zero experience with state of Minnesota contracts. And what we've heard from organizations over the years is, and what we've seen is that these smaller, newer organizations really struggle with the administration and I'll just say the bureaucracy of grant administration for the state. So what we thought would be a really great idea is to see if they wanted to pair up with some of our larger established organizations. So while the smaller organization is in fact the grantee, they could use some of their grant funds to be mentored by some larger, whether that's a public entity, an established workforce organization, to help mentor them through the day-to-day of running a state grant. And what do these larger organizations do really well? They do the administration. They know the paperwork, they know the computer systems, they know all the reporting, the record keeping, the case management best practices. What do our smaller community based organizations, and specifically culturally based communication organizations, do really well? They connect to their communities. They have inroads to their communities that our larger organizations just traditionally don't have. And so what we were hoping for and what we saw a lot of was, this match made in heaven. How can these two organizations learn from each other? So that's I think the most exciting part of the targeted populations. So you want to keep on going, Mike?
Yeah, we'll keep on going. So as we mentioned, 18.5 million each year for this workforce part, max award. They go through December 31st, 2025. Partners, yeah, you got that. And then you can view Vanessa's informational webinar if you could manage to type this all in. If anybody's interested in that link, we'll send this slideshow to Katie for sharing later. We also have the capacity building segment of this, which is the same eligibility as the workforce grant. It can be used for a variety of things, such as staffing, curriculum development, equipment, whatever an organization needs to grow their capacity in serving more individuals, and particularly in providing workforce development services and programming, with a total award cap of $50,000 for that. And we also have the diversity and inclusion for small businesses portion of this as well. They have to meet Minnesota statute's definition of what a small business is to be eligible for this portion. They can only use these funds for diversity and inclusion training. It could be hiring a trainer, staff time to attend training. It could be materials that they may need to do that. Whatever they do, they have to put together an implementation plan at the close of the grant, and the total award cap on that is $30,000. And so the Adult Careers Pathways team has reported some successes. In the first round, they awarded 18 organizations, and approximately 75% of those are culturally specific organizations. And Vanessa touched a little bit on some of the challenges of that, but there was some of that low eligibility of applicant numbers. The quality of responses was a little bit of a challenge, and there was also a slow contracting process, as you can imagine, especially if you're in a capacity building space. Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I'll if we go back to some of the successes, actually, 18 new organizations were awarded. Actually, we had 22 organizations awarded overall, but some of them had been existing grantees to us, but still smaller organizations overall. Yeah, 75% of the organizations that we awarded are small, culturally specific organizations. So really excited about that. And almost all of them are, serving these, they all are serving these really targeted populations, communities of color. So super excited about that. As Mike said, the challenge is we did not get enough eligible organizations to apply. I think that's one, spreading the word, which we will continue to do when we release the second round. And then just that $1 million cap, which that was removed in this most recent legislative session. So I think that will increase, but the focus will be small organizations and medium-sized organizations first. And then obviously our, very specific targeted community-based organizations. Quality of responses. These small organizations don't have the funds to hire expensive grant writers. So it was difficult this next go around. We really simplified and tried to put it in plain language and made it very much question answer for the next go round. I think that will also help DEED and we have all our grants reviewed by community reviewers as well to input their information or their feedback on the proposals. So I think that will help us make better informed decisions. And then again, yeah, the slow contracting process. It's just a lot of work to get to the point where we can actually execute a contract on both sides. So
Thanks, Vanessa. We'll kind of steer it into a close here just by showing you some of the outcomes. Vanessa and the Adult Career Pathways team, this is some of the outcomes. I'm not going to read these ones specific to you, but this, among other programs that their office leads that we didn't tell you about, such as like the Pathways to Prosperity grants that we have, or the Women's Economic Security Act, or the Southeast Asian Economic Disparities Program. We have a variety of different programs, Getting to Work, Clean Tech, Drive for Five, which focuses on Minnesota's 5 key occupations and industries. When you add all that together, these are the results that they had from that most recent couple of program years of data here. And so in closing here, we have a website. If you want to learn about any of those interesting programs that I just mentioned, including this one, there's more information on our website. They keep a very meticulously crafted website with details on all these programs and services and our press releases. And we just thank you, and we'll open the floor for questions. If we will yield the floor back to you to potentially open the floor.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Lang and Ms. Roman. Yes, as he just mentioned, this is the time where we have set aside for questions. And as always, I'm going to hold mine so I don't hog up the time. So we'll start with Dr. Tyler Garner and others. If you use your raised hand function, that'll help me and Ms. Gilbertson identify you. Go ahead, Dr. Tyler Garner.
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief as well. I had a series of questions based on what you presented. And in particular, I wanted to know what the impetus was, why the complement of what feels like WIOA services. And then there's this emphasis on capacity building as well as adopting kind of that Debbie approach to the work. And I wondered specifically, like, what did you attribute the challenges around outreach to? And so you noted things like the difficulty identifying organizations that would be supported with the capacity building piece and pairing. You also noted having to increase the threshold to get more engaged. And so I wondered how much muscle memory you all had as a community or a state around some of the language or areas you were trying to grow capacity in. And then beyond that, specifically what capacity building areas that you identify as a focus for the organizational mentorship. And I'm asking these questions because I believe it's timely and that there's some parallels that can be drawn between our effort here and the work that you're doing. So we have a focus on serving underserved communities and addressing the issues related to it. It sounds like the first component, address underserved communities, and that you saw some benefit to leveraging WIOA to do that. And so I'm wondering if that was the rationale there. 2, that there's this larger discussion around wanting to get folks into a work or into a particular area, but there's the history of it, whether it's the lack of language or capacity around it, or even fears like, hey, will I be swallowed by this larger organization if I'm paired in that way? And the extent to which those kinds of things came up as a consideration for us.
Yep.
And then beyond that, like if you're targeting something to build capacity, whether it's individually or at the macro level, what are those things that you all identified, and did you see a return from it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Vanessa and I will kind of tackle some of those. I think I'd start off by just saying that the reason why this looks like WIOA is, I mean, it's somewhat intentional, but by offering some of our grants in these smaller buckets like we have, it allows for more competition. If you're going to go after the WIOA dollars in the local areas, it's hard to beat an organization that has capacity or the size and scope that, they may do things in your state and ours, like Avivo. So by bringing it down, and then additionally, they reduce it doesn't have all that WIOA regulation and rules and processes and items like that. So there's greater ability to do that. And then as far as like some of the reasons why, it's everything that you say. Whatever the reason might be that certain populations don't find careers in different areas of different occupations, it's really the intent isn't to push them in any specific direction other than the best job, family sustaining wage at the best job, the best opportunity with the right skills and resources and information they need to be successful. So Vanessa, if you want to add anything to that.
I think I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tiffany. What were we looking for with this mentorship? Again, with the outreach and the pieces, we've heard from many of our newer organizations that Workforce One is our state workforce reporting system, case management system, and people have definitely struggled with learning it. We are a team of 6 and we offer all the technical assistance that we can, but we have well over $100 million and well over 250 grants to administer each quarter. So we don't have the time to provide other than a large one and done case management and then ongoing technical assistance, but to train every new staff person that comes in to our grantees, we just don't have that capacity. One of the things that definitely plague our workforce partners is turnover in their own staffing. And so, they're constantly starting over, especially small nonprofit organizations. The wages are at a certain level, and so they're constantly renewing. So by partnering with some of these larger organizations, we hope that they could, provide them almost day to day, ongoing assistance in these administrative requirements and all of the things that the state requires by law, which collecting identification, collecting proof of Social Security, not necessarily Social Security card, but the things that we have to collect under state guidance, case management rules, all of those things.
One other thing I forgot to mention too, we also offer training to smaller organizations on replying to our RFPs as well too, and we've done it in the past, and we're gearing up to do it again here soon, to also help with that capacity building, to just getting through the application process as well, without putting Vanessa in the difficult place of having to help while they're filling out the application, but.
Yeah. And I think you said something also about the same old channels. We did a number of presentations with our Office of New Americans and their refugee councils. We reached out to the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, the Minnesota State Heritage Council, so that's the Latino Heritage Council, the Council on Black Minnesotans, and asked them to all spread this opportunity as far and as wide as we could. And we did hear from a lot of organizations that if they were, $1,001,001 in revenue, they weren't eligible. And the other place we saw this is, maybe they had a thriving food shelf program that took them over that $1 million. Well, that still made them ineligible for, even if their workforce program was only this big. So for a lot of different reasons, we just realized that flat $1 million cap just was not going to be successful in getting as many organizations in the fold as we wanted to. So, but we will definitely be focusing on awards in small and small to medium size organizations.
Thank you very much. in the spirit of facilitation, I may double back to Dr. Tyler Garner before I hop in, because I'm watching the time too, but I think we're doing well. Next question or series of questions will come from, and I'm happy to do this publicly and officially, will come from Dr. Thompson Hilbert. So quick congratulations to her on the record. And with that, Evelyn, I'll go ahead and informalize things. See, I'm making up a word there, but go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I love what you guys are doing. I'm a big advocate of asset mapping, and getting our bottom up, in other words. And I don't even like that phrase. I'm in search of a new phrase because I think it's imperative now more than ever that we get the feedback from the people that we're serving. So I really love what you guys are doing, and I just wanted to throw that in. I have a couple. I think they're really quick questions. One is, do you guys perceive one of the barriers of the way the grant is structured for requirement for and I think I heard that right, for requirement of residency, is that within that specific, I think you said that the business has to be based within the community, which I understand, but then that brings to question or to mind if there are virtual things, if there are people that identify, let's just say, I'm a Black business, but I don't live in this zip code. That would seem to me to offer some barriers, but I was just curious what you guys found, any feedback in that. And then the other one, well, if you want to say that. The other one is just really quick. I was curious about, roughly 2.3% unemployment rate for the general population. I'm wondering if you could share with us any of the employment rates for the underserved populations, if you guys have that handy.
Vanessa, if you want to take that first question, I'll see what I can do to really quick find something on the second question.
Sure.
Sorry, Mike, but it's not.
No.
I was just curious.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Dr. Evelyn. We did run into a little bit of headache with that it says, the primary office has to be in an underserved community of color and serving that local community. I think we didn't run into really issues of it from a participant eligibility side because we're not monitoring or, safeguarding. They live in, Minneapolis, or the organization's in Minneapolis, but they're serving someone out of Brooklyn Center. We're not going to monitor it to that level. I don't think that was the intention of the legislation, but the intention of the legislation was very much that these organizations be in communities of color, underserved communities, low-income communities. And with the new virtual age, what we found is some organizations applying were located over here, but the communities they serve is over here. Despite we did some, legal opinions and everything, and we couldn't award them based on how the legislation was written. So that may be something we seek an amendment for in the future.
Thank you. Interesting. I was very curious because I think we would have, anyone would have a similar dynamic in any city, actually. I already seen it in Las Vegas, but
it definitely wasn't. It's not a participant level issue, but it's definitely an organizational level issue on where they're physically located, the way the legislation is written.
And I just basically grabbed the closest virtual magazine I could pull out that has anything. And so on this graph, in December of 2022, the white unemployment rate was 2.1%, the Hispanic unemployment rate was 3.8%, and the Black unemployment rate was 5%.
Mm-hmm. One other thing I think would be important to share too is our adult career pathways programs overall. We have historically, I just pulled up our last, 2-year biennium results. 80% of the participants we serve overall are people of color in all of our programs. So, we're able to get that demographic as a whole, or, really engage people. And I'm sorry, I just lost my screen. There it is. But drilling that down even further is what our goal was here.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I'll keep facilitating. Dr. Tyler Garner, a second round. And then let me also ask, are there any other, because I'm also monitoring, I see committee member Landry, Galt, and Merritt. If any of you have anything, let me know as well. Go ahead, Dr. Tyler Garner.
Thank you. We have similar aims. And so I'm wondering, as you consider your strategy was which was provide direct service with less regulatory constraints to build a capacity of organizations to serve while leveraging their collective strengths. And then beyond that, just to look at or build their capacity around inclusion. Are there some strategies that you found more effective than others? And if you had to prioritize either the direct services with greater flexibility, the build organizational capacity to build wider support in the community, or just to help folks think through how they might include others in the workforce by taking a more inclusive approach. Whether is there something you would prioritize over one or the other?
Vanessa, would
Personally,
you like to? Yeah.
I think you kind of hit it in order of how you listed them about, the flexible approach, the increasing capacity. That is kind of twofold. We want these organizations to be successful. So by setting them up for success with every tool at their hands to show performance, they will be also better. They'll have a better foundation to receive additional funding from a variety of sources, especially state sources. The state of Minnesota has a law that we are required to take past performance into account in all grants. So we're really hoping that these grants will not only serve individuals, which is our primary function, but will set these organizations up for success down the road to make them more competitive and be able to sustain their services and their footprint in workforce. Also forces, this is off to the side, but it also forces people to kind of play nice in the sandbox together, which is always a challenge. People are vying for a limited amount of dollars, but no man is a ship by themselves, and no organization is a ship by themselves. And working together, we think we will produce the best results.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Lang, did you have anything you wanted to add before I keep going?
I guess the only thing I would add on that is, as a workforce development agency, our scope is somewhat fixed in a very kind of, it's a multi-lane highway, but it goes one direction when it's workforce development. And so when you think about what would we like to do more, it would be nice if we could have more creativity to do capacity building outside of the scope that we currently have, but it's pretty fixed as it is. And so, but that's the wonderful thing we have with our economic development side, is that sometimes that they can be pretty creative if we need to in that regard as well. So
all right, that'll work. Thank you. And just wanted to mention, I'm also paging back and forth, so noted committee members Slaughter, Jibelbis, and Jimfy. If you have questions as well, please let me know. With that, I'm going to go to, before I hop in, I'm going to see if Evelyn, do you have any seconds at this point before I wrap things up with mine?
Believe it or not, no.
Okay, all right, that'll work. Any other subcommittee members, if you put your hand up, I'll see. I just had some clarification questions. First and foremost, let me say thank you very much, Mr. Lang and Ms. Roman, because as Dr. Tyler Garner mentioned, we're well on the way to trying to do some things here, but we recognize that rather than recreate the wheel, or worse yet, fall into the same or similar potholes, let's reach out to our colleagues across the country. So we appreciate the lessons learned. It's going to help accelerate what we do here in the state of Nevada. With that, to clarify, I wanted to ask, the funds that you receive, these are new funds. They're not, I'm going to say, WIOA offset funds, meaning they don't come, and for the record, oh, that's another thing too, is for the record, Ken Evans, or Vice Chair Evans, or Chair Evans, if, before you talk procedurally so we can capture the meeting, just a quick, 2-second intro in your response. So, Mr. Lang, go ahead.
Yeah, these are legislatively appropriated funds. They were not set aside specifically for another purpose. In Minnesota, we have a workforce development fund, which is paid for by employers, and that creates some of the other programs we have. And Vanessa, can you clarify? This isn't even a part of that, right?
This is from the state general fund dollars that funded this program. It is 100% state dollars, which really removes some of those persnickety eligibility restrictions in WIOA from these funds. For example, selective service registration, not required for any of our state funded programs. We see that as an issue often in communities of color and those that maybe weren't aware that they had to register, and now the time has passed. So
that's good. Thank you very much, Ms. Roman. Because it's a double-edged sword, because my follow-up question was going to be, although you answered it, I still want to ask it to get your insight. Was there a federal agency or notice of funding opportunity or NOFU that you're responding to? But apparently no federal funds involved, but just your thoughts on, are there federal agencies out there that, albeit we have to deal with their administrative burden, still might be helpful for programs like this?
I want to just chime in real quick. I'll let Mike finish this answer, but I will say this program was kind of conceptualized and conceived by our deputy commissioner, really responding to workforce needs that he heard from the community. And he, with our leadership team and our legislative team, lobbied our legislature to fund this program specifically.
Thank you, Ms. Roman. That's great insight for where we'll be headed here in the state of Nevada.
Yep.
My only other two were, first and foremost, I come from the Chamber of Commerce world, where we work with a lot of small, diverse businesses, i.e. job creators, and so I'm happy that this had an entrepreneurship component. So to that end, I'd be interested in getting copies of the proposals you received from those that proposed doing entrepreneurship, because I think that's something we're exploring here as well, because people can create jobs not only for themselves but for others, as well as one of the things we've run into is one of the underserved or hard to serve populations is reentry citizens, and so sometimes they want to be in a position to create their own opportunities as well as others. So interested in that. And then the last thing, and just to clarify, so whether it was the org mentorship or whether it was the funding, all that was managed through you as the state or the local workforce board. Did I hear that correctly?
All 100% managed through the state Employment Economic Development Agency.
Great. All right, thank you.
I'm going to just follow up to you real quick. If you slide down to if you get a copy of the slideshow and get to the very end, Mike talked about some additional programs. I think you'd be very interested in the Drive for Five, which is somewhat companion to this, but it's workforce paired with chambers of commerce to do Chamber of Commerce work and entrepreneurship.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this agenda item. Once again, I want to say thank you very much to both Mr. Lang and Ms. Roman for first making the presentation, as well as B, providing the additional insight and information in your responses to our questions. This is definitely going to be helpful. It's going to accelerate what we do here in Nevada. The other thing I want to do real quickly on the record is say that part of how we arrived at this point is through our involvement and engagement with the National Governors Association, as well as attending the periodic meetings for the Workforce Board. So I just want to put that on the record so that people know that we need to leverage both of those forums because it helps us get to identify colleagues across the country like we heard from today. So thanks again. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. Agenda item number 7 is discussion and information only. I would like to recognize the Director of Workforce Development for the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Elaine Silverstone, to present information on the WIN grant programs and metrics. Ms. Silverstone?
Thank you so much. For the record, this is Elaine Silverstone, Director of Workforce Development from GoEd, and I'm so happy to be on the call with so many of you that I work closely with and or I'm just beginning to meet in the field. Very recently, I had the pleasure to attend some Department of Labor hosted events where I had the good energy to sit next to Dr. Tyler Garner. And more recently, I attended the signing of the Good Jobs Principles where I heard Jerry Merritt speak. And so congratulations on the great success that is to benefit for Nevadans across the state. I love working with my workforce partners at Owen. So Katie and Zach on the line, thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm so pleased to give you just a brief overview of a fund I manage in the Governor's Office of Economic Development called Workforce Innovations for New Nevada. This is a fund that has been in existence for quite some time. I joined the office just less than a year ago. So a lot of this very excellent work that I'll showcase for you today is to the credit of my predecessor and work that I'm really enjoying carrying forward as well. So I'm going to speak from a bit of a past tense, what we've accomplished, and give you then the forward of where we're heading. Let me pull up, I'm going to go through a slideshow, but then I also want to spend some time in my website so that you'll know where resources are that might be of interest to you that you can share with your constituents. And here we have it. Let me share my screen first. Excuse me. How's that share? Are you seeing my, let me get into slideshow mode. Is it in slideshow
Yes.
mode? Now it's in slideshow.
Yes, it is.
Excellent.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much for that confirmation. So to begin, I have on the screen a clip from a recent press release. This is actually from June 29th, 2023, which again predates my arrival, but I'm really proud of the work that's showcased here in that it speaks to 10 active workforce development programs that had been awarded at the GoEd board meeting. A step back for a minute. The Workforce Innovations for the New Nevada is a $10 million fund that we have in our office to help with business development and economic diversification. So in our office, we are focused on exactly that, diversifying the economy and welcoming and attracting businesses to the state in the industry sectors that are priority in the governor's state plan. And to confirm those for you, those 5 sectors in our office are advanced manufacturing, transportation and logistics, IT, information technologies, natural resources, and creative industries. Creative industries is really an expansion, if you will, of tourism and hospitality, where we already are have such a stronghold naturally. But to consider outdoor recreation, film, and sports, which is of course expanding in our state. And so in our office, we have tools to help attract companies in those areas, including tools like tax abatements, for example. Another tool that we have to help answer the question that the businesses we're meeting and welcoming to Nevada might ask are, well, do you have a workforce in my space? If I move to Nevada, will you be able to help me with my workforce? And we can say, yes, we do, or we can say, yes, we do, or we can say, no, we don't, and the and being, we are committed to help you build that workforce that you need, and the Workforce Innovation for New Nevada is that tool. So this is an industry-led workforce training program that is meant to help build workforce training with authorized providers. Typically, those authorized providers are NSHE institutions, but it is by no means, as defined in the statute, limited to NSHE institutions, but that it should be an authorized provider, an eligible provider. So you will see today, as I showcase, the 10 programs are indeed hosted at 4 community colleges, 4 NSHE institutions throughout the state. And this press release, now back to the slide, dating a year back, will present these 10. So what I would like to say too is that what I've learned is the $10 million fund statutorily is an award from the state fund, $5 million for fiscal year 24, $5 million for fiscal year 25, thus a $10 million fund. And it isn't that only 5 million can be used in one year and 5 million the next. We have this bucket of 10 million, which is how you can see already 6 million and more have already been awarded to programs. So let's dive in and look at some of the great and exciting work. The first program by the way, I can't see the top of my slide for the Zoom tool, but can you, I really cannot. Oh, I can move it. I can move it, no problem. Okay, great, because there at the top that I couldn't see a moment ago is the award for the program, and I want to be able to recite that with you. So this is a program at Truckee Meadows Community College, a diesel technician and mining support program for which they were awarded $150,000. And what I have on the slides consistently for the 10 examples that you'll see is a brief description of what the program is, a real picture from their site. But the point I really want to drive home is the employer partnership, because again, these are industry-led workforce training programs. These employer partners tell us we have such and such amount. So for example, the PAP group says we have 200, I'm here in the bottom of my slide, we have 200 jobs in the diesel tech sector. We will pay a certain wage, and the statute will say that it has to be 80% or higher of the average wage for that industry. And we will value those completers, those graduates from this program, because we know they will have obtained the skills that we value we need in our workforce. So this is one program that's been up and running since June, and we're really, really proud of the work that is being done there. Now, Truckee Meadows is the recipient of 5, how's my slide advancing? There we go. Of 5 to date, Go Ed Win Awards. The next is a data science expansion promotion program, almost a $200,000 award, because Tesla and Panasonic have committed, again, industry-led partnership, that they have jobs in this sector, and TMCC is using the funds to help build this program. Now, in many cases, just for example, funds might be used for instructional support, for program support. Many of the programs are using it to buy equipment and to bring their programs up to standard operating, that which students would experience in the actual workforce. So that would be the data science example. Truckee Meadows has a logistics expansion and promotion program where they were awarded, again, almost $200,000. This was for an instructional support and promotion. 3 companies in the region tell us that they have 120 jobs collectively. And of course, the commitment that these employers give us in these letters is by no means complete. We know that they over time will have more jobs, and of course that there are other employers in the sectors that are hiring students, completers from these programs. So this is just a snapshot, moment in time, commitment to the program. We know there's many more than just 120 jobs. And I'm pausing on this example for a moment too, because together with Owen, with our team at Owen, we're promoting data that lifts what we call the in-demand occupations. And we know that many of the in-demand occupations in our state are in this sector, in transportation and logistics. So this is one program. I'm laughing because in my head, I'm imagining, these are like my 10 babies. I couldn't have a favorite. And I hear myself talking very passionately about each of them. So I'm really proud of what they're accomplishing at TMCC in their logistics program, as well as their welding lab expansion support. This is a larger award, almost $280,000. I have visited these. I think these are my photos actually, really getting into the schools and seeing the work that we're accomplishing together is a great reward. This program I'm looking at, I'm not going to slide read for you, of course, but you'll see in the summary that they were able to purchase needed equipment to keep the training current and also to support a full-time faculty member. That's very common description of what some of these awards have been for. One additional program that's much larger than the others you'll see is just over $700,000. This is for an advanced manufacturing mobilization program. Huge. I call this one my outlier, really, because you'll see Tesla has committed 3,000 jobs, that they've suggested they have 3,000 jobs. Panasonic and the Panasonic Center has over 2,000 jobs. And Haas Corporation tells us they have 10. So you saw in the previous examples, many are saying they have 10, 20, 30, up to 100 jobs. Here, Tesla and Panasonic are really giving us a large number of jobs they anticipate in this sector. This particular program, the school purchased 2 vans for which they outfitted mobile classrooms. It's a really innovative program. Western Nevada College has a similar program where they've outfitted a van to travel out, which is very exciting because they can travel to the rural communities that are a bit distant from the physical campus themselves to bring this type of training and support workforce needs for an industry of great growth in the region up at Truckee Meadows in Reno, in and around Reno. Okay, so now we will look ahead. Oh, one more actually. This is a program that predates this current biennium, and it has been extended into this current biennium for reporting reasons, reporting on metrics. So this is, perhaps you'd heard of the recent ribbon cutting of the Panasonic Center, also known as the Advanced Manufacturing Training Center up in Reno. It is a partnership with Panasonic. Literally, their name is on the building. And so there was some delay, just construction delays, if you will, in opening it. The ribbon cutting was this past April. It was very well attended by congressional leaders in our state, business leaders in our state. Many of us from the Las Vegas office traveled up to Reno for the ribbon cutting, and it was a great, great celebration. What they will be able to accomplish at this center is really, really exciting. And you'll see Panasonic has committed 400 jobs. Now we're back here in Southern Nevada, looking at 2 programs that have been funded for the College of Southern Nevada. The first and the only that I currently have in IT, this is a Computing Information Technologies program expansion. CSN is using $1.7 million to build a CIT lab at their, I was just there, the North Las Vegas campus, and it's meant to approximate that which they already have at the Henderson and Charleston campuses. They expect to use the money to hire instructors, part-time, full-time, hourly lab assistants, and for much equipment. There are many partners in Southern Nevada, some you see who've committed letters of support, the bottom of the screen, who tell us they have varied number of jobs, and we're helping to build a workforce for this industry through this particular WIN award. CSN has another large award, a $1.04 million award that is in the advanced manufacturing space and helps to support some of the operations at the Center for Excellence in Nevada. This is one of my favorite, again, right? They're all my favorite, but I have a really great anecdote, like a soup to nuts anecdote, having visited the center. What you'll see in this picture is Dan Flick, who's the executive director. You see Dan's back anyway. Dan Flick, who is the executive director of advanced manufacturing at CSN, and he's actually teaching 3 CCSD students who are completing a train the trainer certification at the Center for Excellence. These 3 teachers happen to be teachers at SECTA. I don't want to try to name the acronym right now because I'm on my roll, but perhaps you know SECTA to be one of the outstanding CTE programs from CCSD. And so here, this program is training the teachers who then go back to CCSD schools and teach their students. Now, this culminated in joining these teachers at their school during what was like a speed dating event where employers came to SECTA, met the students, they came with their resumes, and here we had some of these employer partners and more that you see on the screen meeting their future workforce. And this is just an excellent example of all of the education entities in our community and the workforce partners in our community helping to raise and address workforce needs. I love this example as well. Now for GBC, Great Basin College. Great Basin College has 2 active programs. And I can't wait to tell you in closing about the application that we're presenting tomorrow on their behalf. But this is for a welding technology boring equipment in Elko. This is a really exciting program. I love to hear my partner, Nicole Mayer at GBC, tell this story. But they have put in a lot of effort to attract women to this particular industry. And they have a female instructor in the program now. And they feel that because of this female presence, that they have attracted more female students to the program. So it's a very, very exciting story. And you can see the 3 employer partners who tell us they have jobs that they're ready to hire for in the region. GBC also has a program that throughout its WIN life, we've been able to award additional money as the program needs grew, right? So when an institution partners with industry to apply for a WIN fund, they think they know what the program needs are. But as any good project manager will know, they change in motion. And so we've been able to give an amendment that added more money to this award. And currently this is a just over $600,000 award to help with instrumentation technology, up in Winnemucca. And they are hiring for the 3 employer partners. They're building a workforce for the 3 employer partners that you see at the bottom of the screen. Western Nevada College, expanding training pathways, advanced manufacturing and battery recycling, has a $735,000 award for which Aqua Metals and Redwood Materials have given employer support, that they have many jobs in this sector. And again, will value the completers that come through this program for their workforce. Now I'm going to close from my slideshow, but I'm going to bring up my website. Is my website sharing just by changing the screen? Yes, thank you, Katie.
Yes, it is.
So thank you so much for that confirmation. So I brought up the website, which I had pre-landed on that very press release I spoke about, but I want to speak for a minute to talk about the process for WIN applications for a moment. There is an application process, of course, and WIN applications have to be presented for approval to the GOED board. The GOED board meets every other month, and they are meeting tomorrow, July 25th. And we are very proudly presenting 3 applications for additional programs tomorrow. 2 are from CSN. 1 is for a logistics program, and the other is for a nursing expansion program. And the 3rd is from GBC. This is another Great Basin College. This is another excellent example of our whole ecosystem working so well together to support economic diversification and workforce development. And in this example, I'm so pleased to highlight a relationship that evolved from a recent trade mission in which GOED, the governor's office, and again, some of our partners in economic development attended, and momentum of a relationship with a company called NORCAT, which does simulated safety training for the mining industry, evolved. NORCAT is now partnering with Great Basin College to build a simulation skills workforce safety skills training for the mining industry at GBC. And there are at least 3 employer partners who have committed their support, including Sawtooth Mining, Lithium Americas, and Nevada Gold Mines, with support from the Nevada Battery Coalition and the Nevada Mining Association in this application as well. So I'm really very, very sort of tickled for tomorrow to come that we'll present these applications. And with these 3 awards and 2 recent ones that aren't in my slideshow, but were just presented in this fiscal year at the previous GOED board meeting, we'll just top $8 million in awards from the WIN Fund, which means that 8.3, which means we have $1.7 million remaining to be awarded in this biennium. So this is use it or lose it money, as the statute is written now, use it or lose it money. And the awards really need to happen sooner than later, of course, because implementation has to occur so that job placement outcomes can be met. So it's not like we really have this money to use, if I can say, to the end of June of 2025, is we need a runway to build these programs, get students trained, and get them out into the workforce job place, which is of course the goal. If you'll allow me just a few more minutes to click around in my site, I am at the GoEd website, which is goed.nv.gov. But when I would click on our programs and workforce development, I would find the workforce development page, and just a small little roll down, you will find the workforce innovations for a New Nevada page. This photo is actually the soup to nuts. This is at the SECTA High School with those same teachers you saw training. And behind us is just great energy from that day when students were meeting with employers. Employers were meeting their future workforce. So to click into this WIN section is where you would find everything you might need to engage or encourage others to engage with an application for a WIN fund. Of course, here in the main body of the page, you see the little spiel about what the WIN fund is, and very importantly is a link to the NRS statute, which is really not that long. It's 10 sections, NRS section 231.141 through NRS 2311.152, and really defines what the requirements are for a WIN fund, which include this industry-led partnership hosted at an authorized provider, that the job is a primary job defined by Nevada Administrative Code is a job that is 30 hours or more, and is associated with export revenue of 51% from the company. That is the definition as it is now. And a bit more, like if you want to dive into the NRS code, we can have a presentation, another meeting. So I'm not even going to click on that link, but to take you to this box on the right, where you will see WIN application resources. And this is how we begin. The first step is that we ask an eligible training provider to complete the WIN pre-application as a first step. This is so that, and these forms come to me, quite frankly, a mighty team of one, though I work very closely with workforce offices like Owen and my partners at NSHE, the Assistant Vice Chancellor there. And this is where we determine if in fact the application is eligible, is a fit for a WIN application. You'd also find a budget template that is a required part of the greater application, sample letters of support that do need to be obtained from the employer partners, because again, I can't overstate enough that the WIN is industry-led workforce training. And so the employer partnership is key. There's a grantee resource guide just to give a viewer an idea of what the engagement with the award of this kind is about, what the obligation is, including quarterly reports, etc. And then some tools for along the way, like a WIN modification form, if a change needs to be made, an amendment through the cycle of the project. And very importantly is a link to the GoEd board meeting schedule. Awards less than $100,000 can be approved with it GoEd Executive Director approval, and then they're presented as approved to the GoEd board. And a project that is $100,000 or more does need GoEd board approval, and so that schedule becomes an important project timeline milestone. Further down on the page, you'll actually be navigated through the process for a WIN application, that first step being the WIN pre-application. Then I would grant, if we find it's a fit, I help to advance a user to the full application, which does call for some more thoughtful inputs, including a workforce diversity action plan, a needs assessment, workforce needs assessment, capacity analysis, and of course, job outcomes, the commitment to job outcomes. The third step is a program review. We work together to review the application and make sure that we're preparing a strong application for the GoEd board consideration. And that, of course, is the fourth step. And then if I just last thing, and then I hope I'll have some time with your facilitation to take some questions, Vice Chair Evans. But what you'll see are WIN current programs. So those 10 programs that I highlighted for you in my earlier presentation are showcased here on our homepage. And further down, you would find archived or already completed programs that get, I guess, less of a glossy spot on the page, but we still want anyone with interest to know about them to be able to click for more information. And that would be my presentation for you, just to give you a little idea about what this very impactful program is about. I'm happy to entertain any of your questions, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Silverstone. And yeah, I know we're going to have some questions, and we do have time. So 2 quick comments before I dive into the questions. And just so we know, Committee Member Gyamfi, you'll be up, and then Committee Member Landry, you'll be on deck. Just 2 quick comments. First and foremost, Ms. Silverstone, I want to say thank you very much. One of the things we talk about, think of it this way: the first presentation we got dealt with access and awareness on the front end. The other thing we talk about on the back end, bless you, Mr. Bell. The other thing we talk about on the back end is career paths, meaning employment opportunities, but not just a job, but hopefully career opportunities, as well as with the livable wage component, if not parentheses high end. So I just want to commend you for what we're doing, and ultimately for what the NC institutions are doing, as well as the other frontline organizations. The second thing that I want to mention, at the risk of repeating myself, but it's to focus the questions you're going to receive, is, again, this is the Barriers and Underserved Populations Subcommittee. So absolutely, we appreciate all these programs. Our concern is for the underserved populations, how do we make sure that, number one, they're aware of the programs and have access to the programs, and ultimately get connected to some of the opportunities in the new economy. So with that, I'll stop and I'll go to Committee Member Gyamfi, and then again, like I said, Committee Member Landry, you'll be on deck. And go ahead, Committee Member Gyamfi. I think you typed it, but just go ahead and state it for the record.
Yeah, Director Lane, thank you. This was very, very helpful. Derek, can you hear me? Good, good. Derek Gyamfi for the record. Just wanted to get more clarification right around the commitments by employers, right? Are these commitments on just, hey, available jobs when they complete the program, or are these commitments to say, hey, we're ready to hire this amount of people, this amount of students from the program when they graduate, right? What does that relationship look like?
Great, thank you. Elaine Silverstone for the record to respond. That is the crux of the WIN program. And so the employer letters have to clearly state that in the next 2 years, the next 3 years, the next 5 years, we have this many jobs and are paying this wage. And in the WIN agreement that must be executed by the eligible authorized providers, which in most cases are the NC institutions and our office, there is explicit statements in a section and an outcome section that say, for example, because of this WIN award and the program we can build, we will have capacity to train an additional 20, I am making this up for illustrative purposes, but I would be happy to share any more specific example, pull up an executed agreement if it might be of interest. We can train an additional 25 people per semester. And now we've got 3 semesters left. So now we're going to be able to train an additional 75 people. And the employers tell us, and of course, we're looking for tight alignment, that we're training the amount of people that there are actually jobs for. And the employers will say, and we're hiring. And so in the executed agreement, they'll say how many they're going to train and that they're going to place 75% of them. Or they're going to say, some are so bold to say, we have a 100% placement record. Now, there is an obligation to meet that which you commit to in an executed agreement. And the quarterly reports that we require as part of our grant process require our partners, that we work together to track towards that executed commitment of how many jobs they're placing. And then my role is to help mitigate any challenges that they may have along the way, or to keep our office apprised of any challenges along with successes, right? Let's celebrate those successes as well. And so it is explicitly in an executed contract that there is commitment to these job placements. Does that answer your question well?
It does. And it's just a quick follow-up, Derek, thank you for the record again. And, I know the programs are relatively new, right? I think this is the first fiscal year. Are you seeing, what does the conversion look like? Are you seeing that 75-80% conversion, or what are some of the challenges, some of the barriers and that you're hearing? I think we've identified for these specific populations, right? Some of their barriers are different from the general population, right? So would love to kind of just get your take on that as well.
Sure, Elaine Silverstone for the record to respond. So while this is my first fiscal year engaged, the program has been in existence for some time, and I'm able to refer to 2019, 2021, and 2023 biennium reports to the legislature that reported out on the outcomes. And those are public records that I can make available to Katie to make easily available to you, that you can review them, and they speak directly to the metrics. My experience so far is that my programs do report that they are all on track. Only one of the 10 had challenges hiring an instructor. And that is a theme that we are hearing, that in these spaces, experts in the field maybe can make more money staying in the field than they can coming to teach in the field. And so there is some challenges hiring. One of the programs that was exclusively for hiring an instructor said, we're having trouble hiring an instructor, and what can we do to recapture the timeline for which some of that money, we're like, you understand what I'm saying, right? Like if they said we're going to use the money every month and now months have gone by, there's a delta. So what can we do with the delta? We were able to create an amendment to help them repurpose the program that still would meet the job outcomes that they signed in a win agreement. So for example, they were able to host a conference at their campus that would draw attention, so promotion and awareness, not just for students, but for industry leaders, and that any margin that they made above the conference operations would be used for student scholarships in the program. So we were very proud of being able to pivot in that way and still be very, very focused on job outcomes.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Gyamfi. We'll move on to Committee Member Landry next. And again, if others have questions, please use your raised hand. Mr. Landry.
Kevin Landry for the record. Thank you, Chair Evans, and very good, very informative. You do good work. My question really focuses around some general confusion I'm having with some terminology and or overlap and or duplicity of effort here. But in your role there at GoEd, I'm curious about how you work with the workforce development system, such as the local boards, Nevada Works, Workforce Connections, such as Employee NV, Hubs, and like. Any collaboration with those boards to determine how your WIN funds are allocated?
That's a great question. And I'm quickly pulling up one of my most favorite I'm going to pull up my favorite. Zach already knows what it is. Here it is. Okay, let me pull this over. Thank you for giving, this is Elaine Silverstone for the record, taking a moment to pull up what I think is a really, really great resource. Do you see this diagram, this circular diagram? Yes?
If you can share your screen. Share your screen.
Share. Thought it shared. Oh, because I didn't hear. How about now? Is that shared?
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it.
So this is great. This is an Owen owned visual that that I love so much because I think it does a great job of highlighting the workforce ecosystem and how we're all working together, and celebrates that I think there's great understanding among these agencies of our swim lanes, that we're all focused on our charge and working very well together. So in my office, workforce development is very clearly in service to economic development. I am a tool for business development deal closing in terms of attracting businesses to the state or helping them to expand in the state to create opportunities and high wage jobs for Nevadans. I work very closely and really value my relationships with the other workforce programs so that we are all raising all boats. How I work with them on the WIN program, I don't think there's overlap so much in the WIN program other than, well, let me restate it this way. WIN awards are a definite go-ed business development deal closing incentive, but that we are all focused on these sectors for which we're attracting businesses and building workforce and raising opportunities for all, we're in great synergy. So Katie and I, for example, as a representative from OWN and the Governor Workforce Development Boards, we travel hand in hand across the space at events for our own knowledge that help support our work. If there is an avenue that you think would be beneficial, that we were more closely engaged for WIN application awards, I'd welcome it to incorporate it into my process. Other than that, we are all otherwise often referring the leads that we have to each other. I don't know if that answers your question well, but I'd welcome hearing another layer of it so that I can really get to the heart of it.
Kevin Landy, for the record, from a personal experience, having sat on the governor's workforce development board for a period of time now, and also sitting on the Northern Nevada Workforce Development Board, Nevada Works, I don't recall any interactions with the organizations, collaboration, or messaging, or anything like that. And this isn't really directed 100% to you. You just happen to be the one on the presentation today. But one of the things I've seen in Nevada is there is duplicity of title. There seems to be duplicity of mission, and I think it can be confusing at times. So you've got a chart here with some very distinct swim lanes, as you said. I wonder if in reality swim lanes aren't a bit more muddled than this nice chart. That's all.
Sure, I think I acknowledge what you're saying, that that one of the focuses for me has been alignment in the workforce system, so that we're not duplicitous and we are focused on our charge. And it's been my experience in the short year that I've been here, that it's actually very tighter than I was even ushered in with an impression of. I do answer to the GoEd board. I try to join this is my first time, maybe second time in the year on the subcommittee, the barrier subcommittee meeting, and I'm really appreciative to have been invited. I do join the Governor Workforce Development Board meetings otherwise as able, and I offer this as an example in that listening to each other's work is one of the best ways, I think, for addressing this alignment and duplicity issue that you speak of. I welcome any other, I'm very open to any processes that help bring us tighter and working more closely as well.
Yep.
In the meantime, Katie, I look forward to seeing you at the Workforce Connection ISP meeting next week, where we get to do more of exactly that.
Yeah, and this is Chair Evans for the record. If I could just quickly intervene. Thank you, Committee Member Landry, for bringing that up. What I'll share with everyone is two quick things, and they both relate to our recently approved strategic plan. First and foremost, one of the key strategic areas of focus is on underserved populations and making sure that, again, on the front end, they have awareness and access to opportunities like this that leads to back-end career employment at a livable wage. So again, that's one strategic area of focus. And then the other thing that I would say is that another key area of focus from a strategic standpoint is alignment. And what I would suggest is this, Ms. Silverstone, your response was spot on to Mr. Landry's question in that even if things are muddled, I think we welcome synergy and collaboration. But to Mr. Landry's point, as we move forward with alignment being an area of focus, we do want to avoid duplicity and inefficiency. So I think we're moving in the right direction with our strategic plan and its implementation. Okay, from a facilitation standpoint, we're going to go to committee member Tyler Garner, committee member Thompson Hilbert. You'll be on deck, and then I'll be in the cleanup rotation. It's baseball season, so y'all gonna have to bear with me. Dr. Tyler Garner.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tyler Garner, for the record. I think my questions are kind of in line with Mr. Landry's inquiry, but with a focus on opportunity. And so I believe there's great synergy between the work that you are supporting and a number of the other partners, specifically around the strategic plan. And I'm wondering about the opportunity to either do the list of things I'm going to suggest or if it's already happened. And so one, in terms of the industry sector partnership initiative, recently, at least one of the board convened the 7 priority sectors where they brought together the training institutions, employers, and the public workforce system. Are you strategically developing the training opportunity needs that they identified during that process? And if not, is there ability to do so? That's one question. In the same vein, are you working with the RDAs in that way? 3, is there an opportunity to maybe partner across the system to do hiring fairs specifically around the opportunities that they identified at the close of training? And is that happening? And then beyond that, who constitutes the authorized provider? And is there opportunity for us to expand our work by making sure that we're also cultivating those folks so that we can leverage the work you're doing to give a competitive edge to job seekers in emergent sectors?
Elaine Silverstone for the record. Thank you so much, Dr. Tyler Garner. I did take notes, so I think I captured your 4 points well, and I may start backwards. I understand that the Commission for Post-Secondary Education owns the approval process for the authorized providers. Thumbs up, I'll keep moving. I really think, I say this with great confidence based on my 10 months of experience here so far. I really think that the circle I just had up, the workforce ecosystem, whose charge is led by the convening vision of Owen, and we now have a new executive director, Marshall Sneed, who's just been appointed to that role. She's on day 3, who I had the pleasure and good fortune and coincidence to have a meeting with her yesterday that had been planned long before her appointment, because we already have these relationships up and running. I say all that to say, I really think, I'm gonna go back to my swim lanes, they're prime, meaning the types of things you just mentioned, hiring fairs, they're flourishing out of Workforce Connections. Our partners at Workforce Connections are hosting these types of events anchored in the sectors. Now, of course, our office recognizes 5 sectors through the governor's state plan, and we know that some of the other agencies define them as 7 sectors, but we're all playing in the same field and building workforce for that space. The RDAs, we work very closely with. The RDAs are in fact an extension of GoEd in many ways. I meet with the RDAs officially monthly at their RDA meeting, which just happened to be yesterday. And I work very, very closely with them to mean you will see, for example, tomorrow when we present at the GoEd board meeting, the Great Basin College NORCAT application, Sheldon Mudd from the RDA in that region, the executive director, will be presenting alongside GBC's program who submitted the application, and Jason Buba, the COO of NORCAT. So we are like a arms open wide approach to these types of projects so that everyone is considered and we're raising all ships. The industry sector partnerships also hosted through Workforce Connections. This is I've attended every one that has been hosted since my arrival, and our assigned seats have, literally assigned seats have me sitting next to Katie at each and every one. So while we don't own those meetings here at GoEd, we are participatory and with all of those circles that you saw in the system. In our office, where the WIN fund is particularly, again, I'm going to restate that, industry-led workforce training, business development, deal closing tool, that is a very large part of my role as one of the workforce partners in the space. The other part is to be a subject matter expert in the state and to help contribute to the ecosystem. And so in that way, I feel very closely partnered with the ISPs, with the RDAs, and with the efforts of the Workforce Connections, who are hosting programs that interact with people. I have the pleasure of lifting programs, and I find Workforce Connections is really my partner that helps to engage people. So you can show up at a one-stop career center like Employee NV that Marshall Sneed is just coming from running those Employee NV hubs. You can show up at, again, the one-stop shop Workforce Connections for support with resume or your job search. And so that partner in our ecosystem, supporting people. And I have the privilege and role to help build programs in partnership with our employers in the sectors. I hope I hit the 4 items that you mentioned specifically, but please tell me if I can expand more.
I think specifically, folks are concerned or really want to make sure that after you've done your great piece, which is to ensure that there's a training partner responding to the employer need, because the employer has communicated that there is a job awaiting the participants or completers. To what extent is there like a formal process to ensure that folks are trained in that area and then actually get a direct hire as a result of it? And so I'm ecstatic that you all are communicating, coordinating, and see the synergy. To what extent could we, for example, identify a cohort of individuals in an underserved area or community, point them to this program that you've paid for, and then partner with the public workforce system to have a hiring event happen on the back end where we can say certain number of folks actually got a job or onto a career pathway? To what extent is that already happening? And if so, could you share those numbers? And if not, what is the possibility to do that? And is there anything that we can do as an advocate to support that now happening? I think it's kind of what folks are driving to.
Thank you for that clarification, Elaine Silverstone, for the record. And so our applications require commitment to exactly that. So our applications speak to a workforce diversity action plan, and our metrics, our quarterly report asks to capture, I actually have a quarterly report open. So I would like to open that and share one with you. So thank you for giving me a split second. Okay, so this is, let me share my screen. Is my screen sharing that you see? I happen to have this
Yes.
open, so it's not an
Excellent. Yes, we do.
So the type of data that we ask our partners to commit to collecting is, as you see on the screen. They have to tell us the number of veterans, the number of unemployed, the number of underemployed, the number of people that may be on a varied program of public assistance. They have to identify metrics across gender, race, and ethnicity. Here's an example where you can see some of that data entered on subsequent tabs in our quarterly report. And then I'll obviously create this cumulatively to report to the legislature at the end of this biennium cycle. In project trainings, without naming names, they protect they make up their own code for how they would present this data to us, but they are telling us how many came through the program, veteran, employed at entry, et cetera, those columns of data. So we are collecting this information. I don't have cumulative data to share with you at this time, and I feel that the best time for me to share that with you would be at the end of this biennium cycle. These programs are in flight right now, meaning they've gotten their awards recently. They're ordering equipment, hiring their instructors. They may have had one cohort of students go through and complete, which is why this quarterly report can begin to have some data. but it's at the end of the cycle, and why I think the past biennium reports that I referenced and will share, and they are publicly available from 2019, 2021, and 23 would be of great interest to this body.
Thank you, Ms. Silverstone. And I applaud the way you're pulling screens and sharing information for the record of Chair Evans. This is very, very helpful in where we're headed and part of the reason why we came up with our strategic plan. With that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Thompson Hilbert before I provide the cleanup.
Thank you, Evelyn Thompson Hilbert, for the record. Elaine, thank you. I also appreciate the screen sharing because I'm very visual. I just want to reiterate being on the underserved the barriers and underserved subcommittee, and probably because I was at the Vegas Chamber Childcare Symposium yesterday and some other meetings since then. I think it's really important to put in the space, not that you're directly responsible, but I want this to be articulated that among the underserved that we have discussed on this committee, based on the data from Dieter, from the chief economist, David Schmidt, we also are looking at single mothers. And so childcare has been big on my mind. And again, that was a huge issue yesterday. And I know that you have been in the role in less than a year. So what I'd like to put in the space, not 100% sure how, but just so it's there and kept also in the level of awareness because of the meetings I've been in recently. Are any of the employers that you are having relationships, is there a way in the future, I assume, and I didn't see it reflected in the data that you just shared with us, but I would like to start somehow finding out if employers have any kind of even discussion about childcare. I know you, so that's really what I'm throwing in, and I'm kind of yammering around with that because there's so many different things going on with that. Obviously, there's the tax credits going on, but I think it's important. And I was really shocked with a meeting that I was in today, and I'm going to discuss it further with our subcommittee members. I had no idea that 24% of the women, at least from Nevada, over 24% of the women that had during the pandemic that had to stop working due to childcare issues have not returned in our environment. And so that to me is staggering. That's kind of hair on fire, like all hands on deck. And so I just wanted to put that in the space, not because I specifically, well, I do have a suggestion. I would like to see, because even our students, we know CSN, the largest institution in the educational institution in the state, many of the students in our community colleges are adults with children. And so I was hesitating thinking about the NSHE system, but Nevada's unique in a lot of ways because we are not deluged with a lot of universities or institutions of higher learning the way a lot of other states are. So I see you nodding. With that, I will conclude, but I just wanted to put that in the space.
Elaine Silverstone for the record, and smiling back at you at response that I also consider this an important space. So you may have seen me trying to find a material to bring up while you were sharing. Just yesterday at our RDA meeting, we bring in a thematic speaker at each event, at each of these meetings too. And yesterday's meeting, while many were at the Vegas Chamber Childcare Symposium, we hosted an expert who presented exactly this topic, the workforce, the critical factor in workforce of childcare. And I was trying to quickly pull up her presentation that we received after the meeting. I would like to share that with Katie, that you will have that too in your arsenal. So count on that coming momentarily, and know that we are having these conversations too. Another thing that you brought to mind that keeps me my noggin spinning in my work is data that I received from UNLV's College for Business and Economic Research, CBER, if I got their acronym correctly. I go off when I hear Andrew Woods and his team talk about the 88,000 missing workers in our state since COVID. 88,000 missing workers from our workforce have not returned to work since COVID. And I think he divides, the math on that, fast math is, he attributes 55, the data he represents attributes 55,000 Southern Nevadans and 33,000 Northern Nevadans that comprise that 88,000 missing workers. In my work, when I'm thinking about the programs I'm able to help shape, I'm thinking about those 88,000 missing workers and how to help bring them back into the workforce. And I don't know the filter of single mothers and or single parents, as it may be, who would value childcare, who would need childcare to be able to return to the workforce. But I bet it's a significant factor. So thank you for bringing it up. It is thought of here too. I will share that presentation that I was just privy to yesterday, that you would have it as well.
Thank you, Ms. Silverstone. As promised, Chair Evans, to wrap up this particular agenda item, first and foremost, what I'll mention is it may be helpful, Ms. Silverstone, for you to present a summary or possibly be on the agenda for our childcare working group, childcare subcommittee rather, because we have both the subcommittee as well as a working group. So there may be an opportunity there. I'll give deference ultimately to the chair, Brager there, but Ms. Gilbertson may be able to facilitate a conversation there. The more we can cooperate and collaborate, the better. And so thank you, Dr. Thompson-Hilbert, for bringing up a timely potential barrier that we're gonna have to deal with. My questions have to do with wrapping things up. Again, we're charged as a board and subcommittees with having a system-wide lens to things. And so my first question is, along those lines, great programs at the various NC institutions, it looked like to a certain extent we're trying to make high demand programs scalable, but I just wanted to ask, is that something that's on your radar screen to the extent possible, making sure that the good programs in the high demand industries or sectors are scalable? And that's not to suggest that we should do cookie cutter, the same thing everywhere, but what I'm more concerned with is access system-wide. And then the follow-up to that is, and I'm going to somewhat not speak for, but speak on behalf of, for example, one of our committee members, Mr. Galt, is from Mesquite. Mesquite has a population, they're looking for opportunities like this with the hope that ultimately some of them will lead to industries that will relocate and be based in Mesquite. So one of the things I'm wondering about is, if you have a program up north, and somebody's in Mesquite, are there any provisions or any thoughts to provisions to that student, A, finding out about the program in Mesquite, and then B, figuring out a way that they can get access to the program even if it's up north? So in summary, scalability with the thought to the system-wide approach, and then B, ability for students to take advantage system-wide.
Thank you, Elaine Silverstone, for the record. So I'll begin my approach to your question, but please redirect me, because you gave me a lot. So the first thing I want to take a piece that Evelyn shared, which is right in the state of Nevada, the NSHE system, which is one eligible provider, one authorized provider. We have 7 or 8 institutions. 2 are R1 institutions, 4 are community colleges. 1 is Desert Research Institute, and then 1 is the Nevada State College. So we're a very large state, and geographically, those only hit where they hit, and there are large swaths that are otherwise not next door to an institution. The list of eligible providers is greater than the NSHE institutions. And so if, for example, there was an opportunity to create workforce training to help support some of the industry and development in Mesquite, we could find an eligible provider to help build a program. I still have $1.3 million left that I'd like your help to spend. It's use it or lose it. And I don't want to return it. I want to help build programs for your communities, partnered with the employers that are calling your neighborhoods home. That's first thing I would like to offer. And one example is a program that predates me was with one of the local labor unions. I think joint apprenticeship training, I think it was 525, but please, I could be certain if I wasted time pulling something up, but let's just say they're not just NG institutions that are authorized providers, and we can build those programs. Another way that programs we're supporting are reaching beyond their geographic center are through these mobile labs, like the one you see in action at Truckee Meadows Community College and at Western Nevada College. And that's a model that's bringing different experiences, right? So different levels of success off the gate, different lessons learned, I'd like to say. Great Basin College is considering how they can adopt that model too and build a mobile lab workforce program that supports the workforce training needs in and around their community. I'd like to say that I'm seeing more innovative solutions for, I'm in the North and I want to access a program in the South. But in the limited examples that I have currently, the best innovation has been the mobile labs to reach beyond the geographical center. Does that get at the heart of your question?
Yeah, for the record, Chair Evans, absolutely, yes, it does. Sometimes what I do is I call it planting seeds or priming the pump. So that was part of the aim as well. And with that, I'll ask committee member Galt, do you have anything else you want to follow up on, or are we at a good point with what I just asked Ms. Silverstone?
Well, Ken, George Galt, for the record, I appreciate you bringing that up. I consider Mesquite an underserved area. I'm aware, for example, that Workforce Connections is doing industry sector partnerships. I can't get them to come out here yet to do industry partnerships. We do have a branch of CSN. In August, late August, we're cutting a ribbon for HVAC training opportunities at CSN here, and for certified medical assistants. Two good programs that will lead to employment. But we have a number of other employers that I think would benefit from having a conversation, beginning to find out about these programs. I'm not quite sure how to raise my hand and say, hey, you know, Mesquite's out here, we need some help.
Mr. Galt, you just did it. And
Thank you.
That's the again, for the record, Chair Evans, for the record, that's why we have these subcommittees that ultimately to the executive board and the full board. But many times it's in these subcommittees that we do exactly what you just did. So, no,
I appreciate that opportunity.
Absolutely. And Ms. Silverstone, I can already tell, I have one more question, but I'm going to go ahead and give my compliment now. I can already tell for the record that you're committed to this. You're trying to continue to move it forward. You're picking up on lessons learned while at the same time not being wedded to what was done before if needs dictate otherwise. And so I just want to make sure I acknowledge that publicly. The last thing I wanted to do to wrap up is it's related. So if I heard you correctly, we have about, is it 1.7 or 1.3 million that's unallocated?
After Elaine Silverstone, for the record, after tomorrow's GoEd board meeting, which will present 3 additional programs, the award amount remaining, let me get you it right precisely in my magic dashboard here. Should we win awards for 3 programs tomorrow, that will bring the total to $8.7 million awarded for industry-led workforce training programs, and therefore there will be 1.3 million, and I'm still rounding, but that's pretty good
That's
math.
fine.
$1.3 million remaining for award to be used in this fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, with outcomes met by that time.
Okay, understood. Very good. So there's some opportunities there, which leads to my final point or question is definitely anecdotally as well as empirically, definitely moving in the right direction. My concern and question is ultimately these were WIN federal grant funds, if I understand correctly. And my concern is, are we positioned and/or how do we need to position ourselves to get a renewal or another tranche for the next 2 to 4 years at the end of 2025? And then, as always, what I'll ask is there anything that this subcommittee, our exec board, and our full board can do to support you in a renewal or reauthorization effort?
Elaine Silverstone, for the record, please allow me to clarify, these are state funds, not federal funds.
Okay.
These come from the state general fund. These dollars in this current period were a one-shot investment. There is our request to reappropriate funds for workforce innovations for New Nevada is in our current policy position to the governor's office and for the next period. I appreciate your encouragement to participate in making sure that that is fully appropriated. We are recommending the same amount, another $10 million appropriation for workforce innovations for New Nevada as a deal closing tool for industry-led workforce development that will help towards economic diversification in our state.
That's
So,
fine.
yeah, period.
That's fine.
We're going for it. And thank you for your support and encouragement to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Again, Chair Evans, for the record. What I'll share with you is that our board is composed, and by law or by statute, the composition is 51% individuals like myself from business and industry. So I'm going to be careful here because sometimes I get on a soapbox. Yeah, Ms. Mayor knows. Here's what I will carefully say. To a certain extent, it's our responsibility to advocate for programs that will improve our ability to not only ultimately diversify our economy, but make sure as many people as possible participate in it. And I'll leave it at that. Ms. Mayor, was that safe enough on my part? All right. We'll go ahead and close out this agenda item. Again, Ms. Silverstone, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful, another great presentation. With that, because I want to make sure we finish up on time, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is discussion and information only. I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Tyler Garner and myself to discuss the strategic plan implementation and execution with the barriers and underserved population subcommittee members. And what I'll say very quickly is I think we've already touched on it in some of the input and the reason why we asked certain questions today during both presentations. But having said that, Dr. Tyler Garner, have anything else you want to add at this point?
I'll just say I'm ecstatic and want to commend you and your leadership and Katie and Hugh and others on successfully implementing the first strategic plan and noting that it is one that prioritizes the focus of this committee. And so goal 1 being that the board will mitigate workforce and learning barriers for underserved Nevadans, particularly those with high unemployment rates, speak directly to this committee. So to see the priorities of this committee reflected in the overarching strategic plan for the state, I think it's something we should all be celebrating. Also, goal 3 of that plan talks about alignment across systems, which speaks to what Mr. Landry commented today, particularly how are we aligning across systems to get folks into actual work. That is goal 3 for this initiative. And then the piece, goal 2 is really about how we bring awareness of the system to employers. And so even the conversations about how do we increase the number of direct hires. So every element of the call today was one that not only centered on some of the priorities identified in the strategic plan. I hope you will join me and others in celebrating the fact that we have a plan that reflects some of the very real needs that we've been talking here. And I think that should be a high point and a celebratory point for us today as a direct outcome of the work that you all have been doing by gathering and supporting the vision for the state. That's the one thing I would say about it. Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Tyler Garner. Dr. Thompson Hilbert.
It was just a clapping meme as Dr. Tyler Garner was speaking.
Okay. Okay. All right, cool.
Emoji.
All right. Thank you very much. What I'll quickly say is, yes, I may have the title of chair of this subcommittee and vice chair for the full board, but ultimately, as they say, team together, everyone achieves more. It wouldn't be possible with all of you. I really, really appreciate all of your participation, and not just your attendance, but again, your participation that's both in the meetings as well as interim in between the meetings. So team effort, and thank you all very much for the direction we're headed in, and ultimately helps us serve our clients. One, the people looking, and two, the organizations or entities looking for those people. So thanks again. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, a discussion, information only between myself or conducted by myself and Vice Chair Tyler Garner to discuss items for the next agenda, next steps, and concluding remarks. And as always, what I'll say here is, yes, we have this agenda item, but if you have things that come up throughout the course of time between our next meeting together, by all means, reach out to myself, or ultimately, to really get things done, reach out to Ms. Gilbertson, and then obviously she'll make sure that things get communicated and coordinated properly. So with that, let me ask, does anyone have anything that they want us to consider for the next meeting? Okay, I think we're go ahead, Dr. Tyler Garner.
I have 3 items that I believe came out of our presentations today that I think we should consider for discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
And so one, after hearing the presentation from Deed, where they focused on addressing underserved needs by providing less flexible wheel-like services, connecting organizations at different levels of capacity to increase participation engagement. And then 3, they look broadly at inclusion and building knowledge around that.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Dr. Tyler Garner. Ms. Gilbertson, if you could reach out to Dr. Tyler Garner to get those items, and then we'll work on getting them appropriately noted and on the next agenda. Anyone else? And I'm quickly flipping. Okay, I don't.
Yeah, Vice Chair Evans, Derek Jumpy for the record.
Go ahead.
Just related to GoEx, I think the 2 million in excess funds that's left, I think it would be good to really, if there's an organization that we're aware of, that we're familiar, that serves kind of the targeted population that we're looking at, to potentially be the recipient of the remaining funds. I think that would be extremely helpful as well. So I don't know if we have an organization in mind, but I think, and they've been more than happy to work with the organization to develop a program targeted towards the underserved population that we're working towards, to be able to give them a direct line to access these funds.
Oh, that'll be good. And what I'll suggest is again, work to communicate and coordinate that via Ms. Gilbertson. A very good point, because we do want to make sure that our targeted population takes advantage of these programs.
Yeah. Especially, one thing that I really appreciated was even the learning on wheels concept, right? If there's an organization that we can pilot that with, right? I think that'll be a great start to move the needle and actually doing the work, right?
Okay, all right. Okay, it looks like Dr. Tyler Garner, we caught your first one. If you could succinctly cover your next two, because I'm trying to make sure I finish on time.
Okay, sorry about that. So really quick, one, can we consider how we might partner with our boards to pair organizations that have a footprint in a communities or credibility with the underserved communities that we're trying to, and partner them with the folks that our workforce boards have contracted with to provide services? That would be the same as the deed model. And two, can we leverage maybe some funding that is more flexible to get more folks into work? One program that they identified, we have something comparative similar to it. That SEP program, the Career Enhancement Program, is an assessment of
Okay, we'll few technical challenges, but we'll get through it, Ms. Gilbert.
Okay.
If you, hey, Dr. Tyler Garner, we got you covered. Ms. Gilbertson's gonna follow up with you, and we'll be covered for the future. The tech gremlins don't want you to be great today. All right. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. But before we do, just wanted to ask if there was anyone a member of the subcommittee, whether you're voting or non-voting, that arrived late. If you would, please make sure you identify yourself at this time so you're marked present. And if memory serves me correctly, I think Derek Jim Fee was in that category. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the final public comment period. Again, members of the public are invited to make final comments. Anybody on the telephone? Anybody, any public comments on the Zoom? Okay, seeing none, hearing no further comments, I hereby move to adjourn this meeting. Once again, thank you all very much. Greatly appreciate not only your attendance, but your participation. Onward and upward. Have a good one, y'all.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.